Silence. Now just listen. No, it's not the noise around you, it's that emptiness inside to feel. This lack of answers, this feeling of being alone, of not being seen, of not being heard. It is no coincidence she's part of something bigger that you don't understand yet. What no one told you is that when God isolates you, He is preparing you. It's not rejection, it's reconstruction. Maybe everything is falling apart, inside and out, but today you will discover that there is a divine reason behind your desert. And this video could be your turning point. You will understand why they are separating you. You will see that loneliness is not a hole, it is a cradle, a place where God places only those He truly wants to transform. So if you feel this is for you, don't ignore this sign. Comment now. The desert will not stop me. And tell me where you're looking from, because this message needs to resonate where there is silence. And pay attention. It's not just another video, it's a subpoena. Stay until the end, because what God has to reveal to you doesn't begin with applause. It begins in silence. Have you ever noticed how silence seems to scream louder when you're alone? Sometimes it's not just the absence of voices, it's the absence of direction, of presence, of answers. The world is still out there, busy, noisy, but inside you, everything is on pause. It's like life has stopped. Have you ever been in that place where you feel like everyone has moved on except you? This feeling can come in many forms. A relationship that ends without explanation, a job that doesn't work out, friendships that cool off for no reason, a cycle that ends before it's ready. And when all of this piles up, it's inevitable to think, what's happening to me? You feel like no one is listening. You feel like not even God is listening. And that's precisely where many people begin to get lost, because silence hurts, it confuses, it makes you question your faith, your identity, your worth. It's at this point that loneliness becomes a prison, and not because God put you there as punishment, but because you don't yet understand what this silence entails. God's silence is never empty, never. It's full of meaning, full of purpose. But to understand it, we have to stop shouting at the sky and start listening to what He says, even if it's only a whisper. Remember when Jesus was led into the desert? Before any miracle, before any preaching, before any recognition, came isolation. The Spirit led Jesus into the desert not to abandon Him, but to prepare Him. The desert wasn't a mistake in God's plan, it was part of the plan. It was there, away from the crowds, that Jesus faced temptations, overcame internal conflicts, and emerged stronger. If even He had to go through this, why should it be any different for us? The truth is that silence is the laboratory where God works most profoundly. It is there that He separates us from noise, distractions, and confusing voices. It is in silence that He reveals what needs to be healed, confronted, and transformed. But how can you accept this if everything inside you cries out for immediate answers? They haven't forgotten you. This pause isn't the end. It's the beginning of something your eyes can't yet see. God doesn't speak only with words. He speaks with waiting, with absences, with blank spaces. And it's in these spaces that He writes the deepest stories. Often our rush to break the silence causes us to shy away from the process. We try to force open doors that God hasn't yet opened. We seek distractions, noise, anything that will keep us from facing the emptiness. But emptiness isn't the villain. It's the place where God will deposit what only He can generate: clarity, identity, inner strength. And I know, it seems cruel, it seems unfair, but that's precisely where faith comes in. Believing even when all is silent, trusting even when there are no signs of change, waiting even without guarantees, because those who trust in God's timing also trust in the intervals He allows. You don't stay still, you're being worked on, you're not forgotten, you're being formed. Silence isn't rejection, it's preparation. When all is silent, when even your prayers seem to echo in the void, remember this: heaven is still listening. Maybe today you're in a dark room, not knowing what to do with tears no one sees. Maybe you're on a crowded bus, feeling like the loneliest person in the world. Maybe you smile at others, but inside, you're crying. God sees. God knows. And more than that, God is at work, even if you don't realize it. The silence that confuses you today will make sense tomorrow. What seems like a purposeless pause is actually the gap between who you were and who you are about to become. And when this transition begins, everything will change. But first, you must allow silence to do its work. It didn't come to destroy you. It came to reveal you. So don't run away from him. Listen, reflect, wait. Because in this silence, God is preparing the next chapter of your life, and it will be greater than you imagine. Have you noticed how, sometimes, it's precisely in silence that our soul begins to speak loudest? It's in this place where everything seems to have stopped that God is, in fact, accelerating something within you. Transformation doesn't begin when something external changes, but when in silence you begin to see yourself through his eyes. And perhaps this is the reason for your now, not to leave you lost, but so that you may finally find yourself. Silence is not an enemy. It's a language few understand, but one that holds profound revelations for those who dare to remain. Stay, wait, trust, because in due time, what is silence today will be testimony tomorrow. And when this testimony comes, you will look back and understand that every minute of silence was, in fact, God carefully writing your new story. He never abandoned you. Never. Just be silent. It's hard to accept that God is hiding us. Even more so when our entire interior cries out to be seen, noticed, remembered. The pain of not being chosen hurts more than we'd like to admit. Watching others advance, achieve, be recognized while you always seem to be in the same place, it hurts. It's as if life were a journey where everyone is invited to climb, except you. And then a question arises. Why did God leave me aside? But this question comes from a distorted perspective. God didn't abandon you. He separated you. And separating isn't the same as abandoning. It's quite the opposite. Separation is an act of jealousy. When God hides someone, it's because he's preparing them for something that can't yet be revealed. David was anointed king before his brothers. Oil ran down his head. The promise was sealed. But what came next? He returned to the field to tend the sheep, to deal with the smell of the flock, to remain invisible to everyone, even his own brothers. What seemed like a setback was actually the place where God would shape a king's character. God doesn't mold people on stage. He molds them behind the scenes. And it's behind the scenes where the greatest treasures are forged. He doesn't care how much you shine for others, but how much you endure when no one is watching. The field to which David returned to serve wasn't the end of the promise. It was the preparation workshop. It was there that he learned to wrestle bears and lions. It was there that he developed courage, spiritual sensitivity, and humility. It was there that he understood that it's not a matter of when we will be seen by men, but when we will be ready to be used by God. When God hides you, he's working on parts of you that haven't yet been exposed, wounds that need healing, pride that needs to be broken, motivations that need to be purified. God knows that revealing a destiny ahead of time can destroy someone. That's why he'd rather hide you than allow you to be revealed before you're ready. And the hardest part of this stage is watching others ascend while you're still in the process. Seeing friends leave, doors open for others, praise for those who arrived after you. All of this tests the heart. It reveals what you truly carry within. And it also reveals whether you're seeking the mission or the recognition. God's hiding place is uncomfortable, but safe. It's where you learn to listen without applause, to serve without an audience, to obey without guarantees. And it's where God whispers things that would never be said in public. Revelations, instructions, strategies, inner alignments that will be crucial when the time comes to expose himself. But this waiting cannot be passive. It's not about sitting idly by, waiting for something to happen. It's about being active in faith. It's about praying, serving, digging deeper, seeking and growing in secret, because those who are faithful in secret will be strengthened in the visible. David's field was the least attractive place, but it was what prepared him to face Goliath. The problem is that our generation wants to be on stage before the process. They want to be seen before they're formed. But God doesn't work with shortcuts. He works with foundations. And if the foundations aren't firm, any structure you build will collapse with the first wind. Therefore, God's refuge is grace. It is care. It is love. He hides you so you don't get lost in a version of yourself that isn't yet ready. He protects you from what you don't yet have the structure to endure. And if you trust in this, the time of waiting will become a time of preparation. The day David faced Goliath, no one expected anything from him. He was just the bread and cheese delivery man. But he had something no one saw: intimacy with God, courage forged in silence, faith honed in anonymity. He wasn't great at that moment. He was already great, but no one had seen it yet. And that's the key. Hiding doesn't diminish your identity. It only delays the moment of revelation until everything is in place. What is being built in you now, in this time of anonymity, is what will sustain you when the world looks on. And when that time comes, you won't need to prove yourself. God Himself will lift you up, and no one can stop Him. So if today you are in the field, hidden, forgotten by men, celebrate. You are exactly where God wants you to be, and what He is building in you in this hiding place is too valuable to be exposed before it's time. Keep serving, keep being faithful, because in due time, what was created in the hidden will support something far greater in the visible. And on that day, you will not only be seen, but you will be ready. Preparation may seem difficult, but it is the greatest sign that God has something great in store for you. Don't complain about the hidden place. Allow yourself to be molded by it. He doesn't hide you to forget you, but to protect you. There's a pain that can't be expressed in words. It's carried in silence. It's that feeling of stagnation when the days repeat themselves like blank pages, and you begin to wonder if you're really going anywhere. You pray, you fast, you wait, and you dedicate yourself, but nothing changes. And what hurts the most isn't the waiting itself, but feeling that God remains silent, as if everything you do is in vain. This is the point where many give up. When nothing happens outside and everything inside seems to be falling apart. But what few understand is that God's deepest processes aren't revealed with noise. They happen inside us, silently, slowly, invisibly. Have you heard of Chinese bamboo? After planting, it spends 5 years without visible growth, but that doesn't mean it's dead. On the contrary, during those years, it develops such a deep root system that when it finally sprouts from the ground, it grows up to 30 meters in just a few weeks. God works like this. First, He puts down roots. First, He strengthens the foundation, because a tree can only grow if it's deeply rooted. And this time of rooting can be lonely, frustrating, and misunderstood by those who see it from the outside. But it's necessary. Joseph is a clear example of this. He had big dreams, visions of heaven, promises. But before he could see anything come to fruition, he was betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, unjustly accused and imprisoned. Everything seemed to be going in the opposite direction. Humanly speaking, it was the end of any purpose. But there, in the silence of his cell, in the oblivion of the palace, Joseph was developing. None of his skills went to waste. He learned to manage in Potiphar's house. He developed spiritual discernment, interpreting dreams in prison. He was growing inside, even if he was invisible on the outside. And here's a hard but necessary truth. If God allowed your dreams to come true today, would you have the structure to sustain them? Would you be ready to carry the weight of what you're asking for? Because it's not the dream that determines the harvest, it's the maturity. The time of preparation isn't always visible. And that's why many give up, because they confuse the lack of evidence with a lack of purpose. But those who trust in God know that He never stops working, even when we don't see Him. Perhaps you find yourself in that very place right now, feeling buried, forgotten, with no progress. But what if instead of being buried, you were being planted? What if this dark, hidden time was actually a time of germination? Invisible growth is the most important thing. It's where you learn to depend on God, to see yourself as He sees you, to let go of comparisons, and to free yourself from applause. It's where He removes impurities, aligns intentions, and reveals the parts of you that need healing. But growing up hurts. Because growing up means ceasing to be who you were. And all transformation requires surrender. Relinquish control, rushing, and the need for approval. God wants to make you strong, but not just strong enough to win external battles. Strong inside. Strong when no one is looking. There are promises God can't keep until you're ready. Not because He doesn't want to, but because He loves you too much to give you something that will destroy you. He is a father, and loving parents don't rush their children, they prepare them. So, if today you feel like you're in a place where nothing is happening, where everything is calm, remember that God works in silence, and everything He does in silence is more lasting, deeper, more real. When you are revealed, when the door opens, when the answer comes, you will no longer be the same. Something inside you will have changed, and that is what sustains those who remain. Not only what they receive from God, but who they become in Him. This invisible process is not a waste of time. It's an eternal investment. And those who live it with faith, patience, and perseverance carry within them something the world cannot take away: conviction. And it is conviction that sustains the call, that preserves the mission, that keeps us steadfast even in the storms. Don't give up, because no one sees your growth. God does, and when He believes the time has come, He Himself will make everything He sowed sprout. Not before, not after, at the right time. You don't need to prove anything to anyone during this time, just persevere. Because He who began a good work in you is faithful to complete it. The invisible of today will be the visible testimony of tomorrow. And when that tomorrow comes, you will realize that nothing was in vain, not the silence, not the waiting, not the days when everything seemed to stand still. God was aligning everything for something greater than you could imagine. Trust. Stay strong, because what is generated in the invisible with God carries with it a force that no opposition in the world can stop or erase. He is working even if you can't see it. If this message spoke to you, if you are experiencing this time of silence and believe God is preparing you for something greater, comment now. I am being molded by God. This comment is your declaration of faith. We'll give you a like on the channel as a sign that we're with you on this journey and will follow every step of your transformation. Because what comes next might be what you needed to understand, because everything happened as it happened. Stay with me. The next minute may reveal the purpose you've been working so hard to understand. It's strange how the pain of loneliness can be deceptive. Sometimes it's not the absence of people that hurts, but the absence of meaning. You may have people around you, conversations, presence, but inside you're still empty, as if you're surrounded by voices, but none speak to your soul. It's in this place that loneliness becomes cruelest, not because it's loud, but because it's too silent to ignore. Have you ever felt abandoned? Like everyone else is moving forward except you? Like everyone has a place, a mission, a direction, and you're just waiting for something you don't even know exactly what it is. This pain isn't small. It creeps in slowly, but it settles deep inside. And before you know it, you're questioning your worth, your importance, even your faith. The same thing happened to Hannah. Every year she went up to the temple with the same request on her lips and the same pain in her heart. While other women boasted about their children, she carried an unfulfilled promise. Peninnah, her rival, provoked her. The atmosphere seemed cruel, and God seemed silent. But God's silence never means contempt. He always has a purpose. Hannah was preparing. Her womb wasn't barren by chance. It was a place reserved for something that would change the course of Israel's history. But before giving birth to Samuel, Hannah needed to break something inside her. She needed to pray differently. She needed to surrender herself completely. And it was that day, in the temple, weeping silently, that something changed. Not outside, inside. Solitude is often the environment where God allows us to confront ourselves. It's when there's no audience that we discover our true motivations. It's when there's no praise that we see how much we still depend on approval. It's when no one reaches out to us that we learn to lean on grace. But it's not easy. The pain of rejection, abandonment, invisibility, it affects everything. Our history, our oldest wounds. That childhood fear of not being enough, of not being loved, of being forgotten. And if we're not careful, we begin to build an identity based on pain, not truth. And the truth is, you haven't been rejected. You've been set aside. You haven't been forgotten. You've been chosen. And the loneliness you feel now isn't the end of your journey. It's the necessary interval between the hurt and the healing, between the promise and the fulfillment, between who you were and who God wants you to be. Rebecca, for example, a young woman I met, full of dreams and faith. She was involved in a relationship that seemed ideal until she discovered a painful betrayal. What she thought was a blessing turned into ruin, and then came months of emptiness, isolation, questions. She shut herself off from everything. And in the silence of the room, where no one else entered, was where God began to rebuild her. It wasn't quick, it wasn't easy, but it was real. Rebecca didn't go back to who she was before. She became better, stronger, clearer, more dependent on God. That loneliness was the soil where God planted her new identity, and perhaps that's what He's doing with you right now. Perhaps this pain is being used as a seed, and seeds only germinate when they're buried in darkness, in anonymity, in silence. But when they germinate, they sprout with force. No one sees the process, but everyone will see the fruit. The loneliness you experience today may seem like a punishment, but with God, it becomes a sanctuary, a place where He speaks, where He heals, where He teaches. It's there that you learn to live by faith, not by sight, to listen to the whisper, not the applause, to trust in the unseen, not the immediate. And that changes everything, because when you leave this place, you don't come back the same. You come back healed, restored, strengthened, and with a new awareness. God never abandoned you. He simply called you closer. And some calls are only heard in the silence of solitude. So don't despair if no one understands you right now. Not everyone is ready to see what God is doing inside you. This moment is between you and Him. It is intimate, it is profound, and it is sacred. Allow yourself to feel, allow yourself to grieve, but don't let this pain define you. It has a greater purpose. It propels you to a new level of dependence, of surrender, of intimacy with the Father. You are not alone. You receive a visit in silence. You receive healing in tears. You receive preparation in pain. And soon, everything will make sense. And when that sense comes, you'll be grateful you weren't rescued before your time. Because only those who experience solitude with God discover a strength that no one can take away from them. A peace the world doesn't understand, and a clarity that transforms everything around them. So, even if it hurts, stay. Even if you get tired, stay. Even if you cry, believe, because God is in this process, and where He is, there will always be a new beginning. He set you apart not to isolate you, but to restore you from the inside out. Amen. There are times in our journey with God when everything inside us feels exhausted. Our bodies are tired, our minds overwhelmed, and our souls at their limit. That's when even praying becomes difficult, when you try but the words don't come, when you kneel but can only cry, when you want to believe but feel your faith slowly fading away. It is at this point that many think God has distanced himself. But in reality, it is when he is closest. Because when human strength is exhausted, divine power begins to manifest. It is there, in the deepest weakness, that God reveals his most real presence. Elijah, the mighty prophet who stood up to kings, who prayed and poured down fire from heaven, who challenged false prophets and saw miracles, also passed through this place. After one of the greatest victories of his ministry, he fled. Threatened, exhausted, completely shaken, he crawled into a cave and asked to die. "It is enough, Lord," he said. "Take my life." How many of us have silently said this? How many of us have thought, "I can't take it anymore"? Not because we don't love God, not because we've stopped believing, but because the weariness of the journey, the pressure of the invisible, the weight of our responsibilities all together became too much. But God's response to Elijah wasn't condemnation, it wasn't judgment, it was care. First, he gave him rest. Then he gave him food, and only then did he speak to him. But it wasn't in an earthquake, or in fire, or in a strong wind. It was in a whisper. For there are pains that God doesn't soothe with noise. He heals with presence. Elijah's cave wasn't the end. It was the point of restoration. It was the place where he needed to stop everything, to hear the voice that truly mattered. And that applies to us too. Sometimes God allows exhaustion to slow us down, so that we stop moving forward alone and start following his leading. Maybe today you find yourself in that cave. Maybe no one knows it. Maybe you smile on the outside, but crumble inside. Trying to be strong when all you want is to fall apart. And if so, listen, God doesn't demand strength from you. He offers you a hug. You don't have to keep pretending everything's okay. You don't have to try to prove you're in control. You don't have to carry everything alone. The cave is the place where God meets you without masks, where he speaks to you, not as a warrior, but as a son. And the most beautiful thing is that after this encounter, Elijah didn't return the same. God gave him new instructions, a new mission, a new spirit. The man who came in asking to die came out with the direction to resurrect others. God didn't just restore Elijah, he repositioned him. The same thing can happen to you. This phase of burnout won't be your downfall. It will be your rebirth. This pain won't kill you. It will redefine you. It will teach you to rest in God, to depend on his strength, to listen to his whisper, to realize that even when everything is dark, God still shines within you. Because what God wants from you isn't performance. It's surrender. It's not perfection. It's sincerity. He doesn't look for warriors who never fall. He looks for children who, even when they fall, choose to return to the Father's arms. And perhaps you're there right now, reading this like a last breath, feeling like no one understands you, no one sees you, no one reaches out to you. But God is watching you. He's calling you back to the cave, not to hide you, but to restore you, to feed you, to strengthen you, to speak to you as only he knows how. In the cave, there are no distractions, there are no noises, just you and God. And it is in this place where profound things happen. Healing comes, faith is rekindled, purpose is restored, and the soul finds peace. Don't be afraid to be in this place. It's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign that you've trusted so much, you've come a long way, you've given everything, and now God is calling you to renew yourself. So breathe, be still, allow yourself to be cared for, because there's no shame in pausing to heal. On the contrary, it's wisdom, and it's in this wisdom that God builds lasting callings. The same God who saw you descend into this valley will be the same one who will raise you up. And you will not emerge empty-handed. You will emerge with purpose, with life, with clarity. The end of strength is not the end of the story. It is only the moment when God's grace begins to carry you in its arms. You were not forgotten in the cave. You were found. And soon, when you emerge from it, it will not be with the same pain, but with the conviction that even in silence, God cares. He renews. He resettles you. Stay where He is. Rest in His arms. And when the time comes, He Himself will lift you up. Because those who learn to listen to the whisper will never again be deceived by the noise. God still speaks in the cave. He still heals in the silence. He still restores in the pause. And He is doing all this for you now, even if you don't realize it yet. Don't be afraid of the silence. It is in the silence that God strengthens you to begin again. At some point in your walk with God, a question inevitably arises. Who am I now? Through losses, silences, hurts, and new beginnings, your identity seems to blur. What once defined you no longer holds meaning. Accomplishments no longer sustain you. Opinions no longer shape you. Old labels no longer serve you. And you find yourself in the mirror, not in search of aesthetics, but of essence. Identity crises are more common than you think, especially when God begins to peel back the layers that life, society, and even religion have placed on you. And sometimes, the only way to do this is by taking you to the desert, not the physical desert, but the inner one. That place where nothing distracts you, nothing consoles you, and everything confronts you. That's exactly what happened to Moses. He grew up in Pharaoh's palace, believing himself to be someone, but when he tried to take the reins, he was rejected. He fled to Midian. And there, far from Egypt, far from his origins, far from everything that once defined him, he remained 40 years. 40 years in the desert, herding sheep, invisible, silent, forgotten. But in reality, they were preparing him. Moses thought he'd been written off, but he was being rediscovered. That time didn't erase his calling. It only cleared the surface so his true purpose could emerge. Because God doesn't call the world's version of you, He calls who you were created to be. And that's what the desert does. It's not a punishment, it's a reset. It deconstructs to rebuild. It strips away the superfluous to reveal the essence. It confronts the superficial to awaken the truth. In the desert, distractions end, and with them, the lies you believed about yourself. It's in this place where you realize you're not what they said you were, that you're not your failures, your titles, or your sorrows. You are what God says you are: son, chosen, set apart, the target of eternal promises. But sometimes you have to go through a crisis to rediscover the truth. Perhaps this is where you find yourself. After so many falls, you no longer know if you are strong or weak. You no longer know if you still have a calling. You no longer recognize your voice, your desires, your faith. But remember this state of confusion is not the end. It is the beginning of revelation. Before using someone publicly, God reveals Himself in secret. He doesn't entrust missions to those who are still lost in other people's definitions. First, He purifies, heals, and affirms. And then He sends. And Moses was sent out, not as the Prince of Egypt, but as a broken, healed, rediscovered man. A man who knew the desert and could therefore guide others through it. A man who spoke to God as one would speak to a friend. A man who no longer trusted in himself, but in the one who called him. This identity is only formed when everything that supported us from outside disappears. When there is no longer a stage, no audience. When there is no longer praise, no confirmation. When there is only silence, dust, and the voice of God. And as difficult as it may be, this place is necessary. It's where you'll learn to see yourself as God sees you, to stop comparing yourself, to stop seeking the approval of others, to reconcile yourself with your history, to forgive yourself, to start over, not with the strength you have left, but with the identity that has been restored to you. Rebuilding identity is one of the most profound works God does in someone, and it never happens on stage. It's born in solitude, grows in intimacy, and blossoms in purpose. And when you understand who you are in God, everything changes. Outside voices lose power, accusations lose ground, doubts lose their impact. Because those who know who they are, know who they belong to. So don't run away from the desert. Don't shy away from the mirror of your soul. Don't avoid the silence. God is remaking you from within. And when this work is complete, you'll see that you didn't waste time. You put down roots. You gained clarity. You had the opportunity to start over, not as someone who survived, but as someone who finally understood who you always were. You no longer need to live with masks, labels, or imposed expectations. God doesn't work with invented versions. He works with the truth, and it is your truth He is rescuing now. Accept this process, embrace this phase, because what He is forming in you during this time will sustain everything to come. A restored identity is the foundation of a solid mission, and you will realize that even in the most confusing stages, God was at work. He was stripping away what you weren't and revealing what you always were. An identity grounded in Him, not in circumstances. Your identity hasn't been lost. It's being revealed, and the world will still know the version of you that was formed in silence, affirmed in the Word, and sent forth with purpose. Don't fear this process. He is stripping away your limitations to reveal what moves you. And when that happens, nothing and no one can stop you. Waiting isn't easy, even more so when you have promises. When God has already spoken, confirmed, and given hints of what He's going to do, and still nothing happens. Time passes, seasons change, and you're still there, waiting. Your heart begins to question, did I hear correctly? Will God keep His promise? Was it me who created all this in my mind? Waiting tests our faith more than any other phase, because it doesn't bring clear signs or a fixed date. It comes with silence, with uncertainty, with a daily invitation to trust in the invisible. And in this space, between what God promised and what has yet to be fulfilled, the danger of trying to anticipate the process arises. That was what happened to Abraham and Sarah. God had promised them a son. The word was clear, the promise was real, but the timing seemed inopportune. Years passed, and Sarah's womb remained barren. Then, in a moment of impatience, she decided to help fulfill the promise. She offered her servant Hagar to Abraham, and from their union, Ishmael was born. A son, yes, but not the promised one. Attempting to rush God's plan has brought pain that has lasted for generations, because every time we try to accomplish with our own hands what God can only do in His time, we pay a price. We create parallel realities, force open doors, and build on shaky foundations, and then we have to face the consequences of something God never told us to begin. Waiting isn't punishment, it's protection. God knows the right moment to release what He has promised, and He doesn't delay. He matures, He aligns, He prepares the ground, He adjusts the heart, He clarifies intentions, because it's not just about receiving, but about being ready to endure what is to come. How many times does God save us from receiving something before it's time? And in our immaturity, we call it a delay. But in reality, it was deliverance. It was care, it was love. God's timing isn't like ours. Our generation wants everything done yesterday, but the kingdom works with eternity, with processes, with depth. God isn't impressed by haste, He acts with purpose. And in this time of waiting, our part is to not rush. It is to remain. It is to trust. It is to serve in the present while we await what is to come. It is to be faithful with the little before receiving the much. It is to take good care of today, to deserve tomorrow. Joseph waited. David waited. Hannah waited. Jesus waited 30 years before beginning His ministry. In the Bible, waiting was never a sign of forgetfulness. It was part of the plan. And whenever someone knew how to wait on God, The fulfillment came in the right way, at the right time, with eternal fruits. You may be tired, but you are not alone. God is with you right now. He hasn't stopped loving you. He hasn't forgotten what He promised you. He's taking care of every detail, even if your eyes can't see it yet. And when the time comes, it will be like being born again. Everything will make sense. You will understand the no's, the delays, the deviations. You will realize that what seemed like loss was protection, and what seemed like silence was preparation. Don't take shortcuts. Don't be fooled by comparisons. God's timing is exclusive. He doesn't have copies. He has personalized promises. And what's yours, no one will live for you. But it will only come when you're ready. So breathe, trust again, remember the promises, and strengthen your heart. Because if God promised, He will fulfill it. Not in the way you imagined, but in the perfect way only He knows. Waiting on Him is never a waste of time. It's an investment in something truly worthwhile. While you wait, praise. While you wait, serve. While you wait, continue to develop. Because waiting doesn't paralyze, it purifies. And the time that seems empty today will be remembered tomorrow as the land where your maturity was born. You're not the only one waiting. There's an entire generation silently forming, and when it emerges, it won't be impulsive, but invincible. Because those who learn to wait on God carry within them an indescribable strength. Don't trade your Isaac for an Ishmael. Don't trade the eternal for the immediate. Don't abandon the promise just because it hasn't arrived yet. God is preparing something bigger than you think, and when He releases it, you'll understand why you had to wait so long. This time of waiting isn't about what will happen in the future. It's about what God is doing in you right now. And if He's taking His time, it's because He's still molding something precious, something that can't be rushed. Trust. Because when God decides to act, neither time nor the enemy nor circumstances can stop Him, and He will act. Because what He began, He is faithful to finish. You are not late. You are being aligned. And at the right time, what God has for your life will come to you in such a clear and powerful way that you will remember it was worth the wait. He doesn't delay. He prepares. And those who trust in Him are never disappointed. They only mature. His timing is perfect. Now that you've come this far, take a deep breath and look back. How many times throughout this video did you find yourself silent? How many words reminded you of where you are now or where you have been? You discovered that God's silence is not absence, it is strategy. He realized that isolation is not rejection, it is preparation. He understood that hidden time is where the roots that hold great promises grow. She was reminded that the pain she feels today can be fertile ground for a restored identity. And he learned that the time of waiting is not the time of denial, but the time of maturation. You saw that the men and women of God, David, Hannah, Moses, Elijah, Joseph, all went through periods of loneliness, confusion, rebuilding, and silence. But each of them came out stronger, more conscious, smarter. Now the question is, what's wrong with you? Are you willing to go through this process? Let God clear away what limits you, to reveal what moves you. Don't run away from the desert, from the cave, from the wait, because now you know what all this means. So if you understood this message, if something inside you moved, it's time to do something powerful. Show that you are different. Comment below with complete conviction, God is secretly shaping me. This phrase is your declaration, your alliance with this new time. And we at the channel will leave a like on your comment as a sign that we're walking with you on this journey. But it doesn't end there. Do you really want to experience something new? Then don't just watch. Participate, comment, share, subscribe. This channel exists thanks to you, for people like you who not only want to consume messages, but also experience transformations. So register now so you don't miss out on more content like this. And be part of this generation that is quietly forming to impact the world at the right time. And don't forget, What was the code that turned the key inside you? Comment below. We want to know which part touched your heart the most. And if this video reached you, share with as many people as possible. Be generous. Just as you have been blessed with this content, bless other lives as well. And before you go, don't miss the 2 videos that are now appearing on your screen. They are the continuation of what God began here today. One will help you better understand His signs. The other will show you how to win this internal battle with faith and direction. Look at both, because what God began, He will complete. And it can start now, in the next few minutes. There is nothing more powerful than someone who has been broken and restored by God. And if you're here, if you're still listening to this, it's because He's calling you not to be just another one, not to repeat history, but to leave a mark on your generation. You may have even been hurt along the way. You may have lost yourself. Many may not have believed you, but God never discarded you. On the contrary, He hid you to prepare you. And the time has come to come out of hiding. With conscience, with authority, with faith. You're not late. You're in the right place to live out everything He wrote. And it all starts with a stance, with a clear decision. Break through doubt, fear, distractions, and embrace this calling with all your might. You're not just anyone. And if you've read this far, it's because something inside you knows you were born for more. You were born to transform. So once again, declare with faith, God is secretly shaping me. Share this quote in the comments. Testify, prophesy, write with conviction, and come back here in a bit to tell us what God started doing after this video. Your journey is just beginning. And when the difficult days return, because they do, remember these words. Watch this video again. It reinforces this truth. And know this, you will never cross the desert the same way again, because now you know who called you and why they're preparing you. You've come this far, and that already sets you apart from the rest. Most stop halfway. They give up in silence. They sink into fear. But you stayed, and those who remain flourish. Don't let this flame go out. Watch this video again whenever you need to. Send it to someone who also needs guidance. And never forget, there is no wasted time when you are in the center of God's will. See you in the next video. And until then, continue to forge yourselves in secret for a God who never wastes any of your tears. You didn't leave here the same. Something has been activated inside you. Now the choice is yours. Return to your comfort zone or walk towards your purpose. God has already begun, and He will complete. The next click you make could be the continuation of your new beginning. Go ahead. Look, the journey continues. God is with you.